Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Stephen Haggerty. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Hancock by coinpass.com. How are you today, Jeff?
Really great, Steve. Thank you for having us on the show.
No, thank you for being on. I'm really excited about this conversation because it is the big C word, the big crypto. People understand it, some people don't. So let's jump straight into it and give me an overview of what CoinPass is, and then I'm going to get into, how you actually came up about it.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. Right. So, CoinPass we came up with around 2 years ago. Being in the UK for the last 10 years or so, I got involved with crypto originally about 2013, and then properly about 2016, 2017 when I started investing and learning a lot more. And the problem was at the time, 2017, 2018, when the bull run was kind of happening,
Mhm.
is that you couldn't transact in pounds. You were stuck with either US dollars or euro. It was very, very trading heavy and trading focused. I'm more of an investor. I wanted to kind of buy and hold and accumulate. And for using pounds, you had to kind of settle with doing local bitcoins or something true peer to peer. There wasn't anything on a really professional, legitimate level that you would
Yeah.
recommend people to go to. And when one of my really serious co-founders came to me, who's been in financial services a long time, and asked the very same question: where can I buy £5,000 to £10,000? Where's super professional, super legitimate, and I don't want any FX exposure into US dollars. I didn't have an answer for him. So instead, I kind of pitched it back to him. Why don't we start our own?
Mhm.
And originally, he advised us not to do it. And then we read some books and did some education. And then we eventually launched the business and came up with an MVP within about 6 months. So it
I
was
love it.
kind of this big, the startup fintech trajectory after that.
So, what was your background beforehand? Because I think it takes a kind of person to go, I'm going to start this on. I'm just going to start it myself.
Yeah. So there's the three core founders that came together. My background's originally kind of engineering and technology, so I've always worked in infrastructure, usually large to medium to large corporates. So I did about 6 years in hotels and casinos back in Australia. I came to the UK, looked after data centers. We had about 1,500, 2,000 clients with north of 80,000 users, something like
Mhm.
that. So, always doing large stuff. We looked after trading funds, hedge funds. And then when I kind of got into more investing and got more of my time back, I went consulting and I did a bit of time with the SoftBank Vision Fund for about a year and kind of getting involved in that atmosphere of, dealing with Slack and Uber and GM and all of those kind of big names. Naturally your entrepreneurial juices start to flow and you want to do
Yeah.
something yourself, and that's just where these conversations came out about crypto. And I was already buying and investing and looking at some other ICOs and doing stuff with Ethereum, etc. And of course it was just kind of next level to combine
Sure.
that entrepreneurial spirit, and what I really found interesting was digital finance and crypto.
Yeah. It was inevitable that you would merge the two, basically. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. It's, I mean, doing what you love for a daily basis is kind of the
Yeah.
dream, right?
For in those early days, 2 years ago, what were some of those challenges of creating a fintech business?
I think definitely being taken seriously by
Mhm.
not just the public, and that you can deliver what you say you can deliver. Trying to say that you're the fastest, most reliable, and quality service, which is our main USPs, in pound sterling. A lot of people just simply don't believe that you can compete.
Sure.
So
It's a
getting
bold
across that,
statement.
it is a bold statement, but getting across that trust level is by far the most important.
Yeah.
While digital assets might be the new currency in the future, I still think trust is the core currency of
Mhm.
any business. Obviously, with your counterparties that you work with, so our banking partners, etc., proving that you have what it takes to ensure that you are following strict guidelines. And some of the guidelines didn't even exist back then. I mean, the FCA was saying that crypto and Bitcoin were the same thing, and that blockchain and Bitcoin were the same thing, and all of them were a no go.
That is crazy that they were
Yeah,
uneducated in that
yeah,
sense.
and it was the HMRC that were doing all of the AML guidelines.
Yeah.
So with that narrative improving, we're in the middle of our FCA registration right now,
Fantastic.
after their new narrative from January, and we're well ahead of the curve on that. And I think as more professionalism and legitimacy in the market comes around,
Mhm.
with with regulators getting on board with the endpoints, like businesses like ours, with gateways like ours, trying to raise that bar in terms of anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism and
Yeah.
stuff like that, I think the general public will become more interested because it's not just a fad anymore. It is here to stay. It is a technological breakthrough, as well as it's a political statement as well. Being able to hold and self-sovereign your wealth is a very, very interesting concept when you start to dig down the layers.
Let's talk about that, the perception of crypto, because when it first became newsworthy, I think is probably the best way to put it. When you saw those huge peaks, the huge losses, people didn't understand it. And I don't think there's, from where I stand anyway, there doesn't seem to be a universal education for people quite yet in terms of what crypto is. And like you said, the power of it, because actually it can be so diverse and there's so much potential in it if you truly understand it. So how have you seen that adjust over your time dealing with crypto, and maybe even a prediction of what's moving forward?
So I think the main draw for something that's so new, I mean, if you look at it as all of the asset classes, from property to stocks, equities, bonds, etc., it is the newest thing in the last 100+ years. We've had bonds forever, we've had trade in traditional stocks forever, we had FX forever, but because it's the newest and it's still only 11 years old, which is it's a baby industry. The price volatility and the fluctuation, and because we're in this modern day mass media, everything technological, everything happens in microseconds and not hours and days anymore, is that the impact is just so much faster. I mean, we saw very, very similar things in the 2000s where it was the information flow was boardrooms, barbecues, and events, and we saw the big tech bubble up and down. But now it's just because it's global and it's social media driven and it's instantaneous, and anyone can be a part of it, regardless what jurisdiction part of the world you're in. It's kind of like the new narrative. And I think because there's so much out there, it is hard to focus in through all the noise on what's genuine, what's a genuine product, a genuine service provider, where's a genuine bit of education that I can take in and absorb and learn about. There's definitely obviously key books to read. So there's a lot of the stuff by Dominic Fribbs is very, very good. Anything from Antonopoulos, again, really, really good. And that kind of core level of learning what Bitcoin is as a start, like focusing on one thing, and then expanding to the larger space. People can get interested in kind of whatever they want, whether it's the payment side, the trading side, their own digital wealth, smart contracts and DeFi. There's kind of something for everyone.
Do you think, or well, better question here, what do you think needs to be done for crypto, blockchain to become more mainstream, that it is almost a natural narrative in people's life?
It's a really, really good question. I think it's one of the biggest thing is definitely the negative connotation that crypto brings right now. It's it's about money laundering, it's about illicit gains, it's about this, and a lot of that is flat not true. It's actually the worst anti-money laundering tool there is, because you can see every transaction in real time. I definitely think banks getting more on board with accepting it instead of pushing back against it, because it means less control for them. I definitely think there being more healthy conversation about it, not about which is the real Bitcoin, about 10,000 BTC pizzas and stuff like that. It's kind of not interesting. That doesn't help that that narrative of this is something you can get interested in, and this is something where you can invest it, trade it, use it for payments, store your wealth. And it's we're talking just about Bitcoin here. If you start expanding that to like central bank digital currencies, something that they're wanting to experiment with, they kind of need that that positivity push forward, and not a lot of the toxicity that some of the crypto space has in it right now.
Massively. So where does coinpass come into this? How do you want to be educating people in terms of as a business?
So I think as a business, we definitely want to not just target, but kind of cater to that kind of beginner to kind of intermediate. I mean, our product stack is connecting banking and crypto, and what our kind of bigger vision and goal is to bring banking and crypto into a single digital layer. Think of it when you're at your school dance when you were a kid, and you kind of had to keep that 2 to 5 meter range between
Always on one side,
over that side. And it's kind of what it's like at the moment. You kind of like banking's over here and crypto's over here, and if we keep them at a distance, we can kind of keep an eye on them. But I mean, just how look at what like property ownership or property investing was like 25 years ago to what it is now. You can go into a property REIT, you can have fractional ownership, you can have all types of it, whether you're a trader, an an investor, it doesn't really matter. There's something for everyone. And I believe, crypto and blockchain will follow a similar scope of it may be the back end to your digital banking, because all the banks can remit on the same layer in real time. And there's no individual clearing banks. And, did you get that £10 I sent you? All of those kind of, waste and miscommunication in the system will disappear, which is a form of control for some people. The ability to be able to send your funds to anyone on the planet in real time. Like, why does it still cost me £50 to send a couple of thousand back to Australia for my mum? Why do I have to pay? Why do I have to pay such a large sum for that when I can send it to her in 5 to 10 minutes through a decentralized layer? Even if it's permissioned, it doesn't really matter. But it's 2020. Why are we still being held back by some of these constraints?
Yeah, that's an interesting point though, because obviously those fees are a massive contribution into banks' income and revenue and that kind of thing. If we move more towards blockchain, crypto, that you don't not no cost to send money, how do the mainstream banks, or not even, I hate saying mainstream banks because it's there's so many people trying to disrupt that market at the moment, which is fantastic. But how do we, as a bank or a society, start to monetize that? Because I think that's the risk, isn't it? At the moment, it's in this space where it's not monetized in the way that normal things are, which is a real appeal to it. Because, like you said, you can send money to Australia for free and that kind of stuff, and instant. But at some point, I'm guessing there has to be some sort of conversation to go, okay, if this is going to become mainstream in terms of everyone on the planet has access to it, which they already do, but they know they have access to it and educated, do we then, is there that risk of it almost falling into the current setup in terms of banks now, or do you think it will always be the state it is?
Well, I think it's a difference between massive cost and acceptable cost. Banks still have to make money. They still have they are the financial system right now, and anything that risks that and is a counter to it. This is you're living in your house. There's someone that's going to come and take your house. You are going to do everything in your power to stop that happening, right? But if it's if we approach it more like how can we do things better and more scalable so everyone wins. So they get, they can still collect their, acceptable fee, not ridiculous fee, and they can, work with all of their counterparties more effectively, which I think is probably the real problem, is how many intermediaries there are, and which banks work with others, etc. Like HSBC in the UK won't send it direct to HSBC in Australia. They'll use an intermediary somewhere.
That's nuts. That is
But it depends, and that's a layer that we can't see, and that sort of disinformation or lack of transparency and the cost that's involved in that is probably the bigger problem than what's the solution to that. I don't know. I'm not a banker, but I definitely think where it can improve is by using a newer technology to replace an old one. There are still IBM AS400 machines from 1985 still running, core pieces of businesses because they are either too expensive or not. There's nothing better to replace them with now. And I think now there is. You don't have to put everything onto Ethereum or everything onto a public chain. There is a lot of private chain stuff being built, like JP Morgan's Quorum, that has a lot of controversy around it. But then also they took all the best bits and put their own permission layer on it, and now it does a lot of their internal communications between and remittances between their departments. There's a lot of good that can come from it, and I think it's just going to take more time and more development for them to see the benefits rather than the cost or the implications of them losing business and how they can improve business and kind of do more.
Definitely, I think I couldn't agree more. In terms of coinpass yourself, then I always like to ask this question, but as a co-founder or as a founder, what is the best part of your job? Because is it seeing the change that you're doing, or what is it? Because especially in a business like yours, it must be fascinating.
What's the best part of my best fun part? I think it's
This is where
definitely
I'll get you in trouble with your co-founders.
yeah, no. We all have our own little avenues. We have our head of compliance. He loves doing compliance, and he loves is our bean counter. Our head of
Yeah.
technology, Paul, is our main tech and everything digital. He has a great team behind him, and he does what he loves. And then I get to do stuff like this and talk with clients all the time and find out kind of where the market's going. And I think it's that my most favorite bit is constant learning, whether
Yeah.
that's about what the industry is doing, what the regulators are looking for, what banking is doing, what our clients are looking for, the evolution of our competitors and kind of what they're offering, etc. How we can position ourselves, to be innovative as well as different, but also play within our space and not try to overgrow too much and over leverage
Yeah.
ourselves, and finding that balance. I never thought I would be kind of a product guy, from my experience and my tech level. But no, it's every day is different. We always have new clients coming on board, new businesses, a couple of partnerships coming up. I'm really excited to announce soon,
Brilliant.
and obviously releasing new products. It's always great to see an idea concept that we threw against the wall a couple of months ago come into fruition as something I can touch and feel and type and trade on. It's a
Yeah.
really good feeling building something new.
That must feel really good, considering you told me before we went live that this was basically formed in a pub.
It wasn't just forming a pub. I mean, we were all
I
there
did
for a
it a
reason.
massive disjustice by saying.
No, it was we're all there for good reason. We're there to solve the problem of how can I
Yeah.
buy something with legit million pounds, and kind of the route it's taken from there has never really kind of deviated too much. In fact, you just reminded me, I was doing a bit of an office cleanup the other day, and in one of the drawers I found like the original A5, A0, whatever that smaller notepad
Yeah.
size is. The original small notepad of the coinpass,
Amazing.
what we're going to
You should
build.
you
And
should get the pages framed.
yeah, it's well, unfortunately it's two-sided, so I might have to photocopy one of them. So but no, it's got the original spec on there, and there's still a lot of the guts and the backbone of that drawing is still true to today, which is really cool. So I thought I'd lost it a long time ago, and it was just under piles of
Buried. Admin.
pens and marketing material and all the
Yeah.
old stuff.
It
And
happens.
it made me really happy to find that, actually. So it's framed up on my wall.
Yeah, I was about to say, seeing something like that and seeing that actually you've stuck to that core idea 2 years on is a credit to you, because there's so many founders out there, co-founders out there, that have the original idea and they pivot so much in the first couple of years that almost by year 3 they're having to start again because they pivoted so much. With coinpass, you've been stable, you've had that stability with the ideas, all this kind of thing. For the three of you, did you think that you would get to the stage you're at now? So, like, in the time frame you've done, you're 2 years in. This is some incredible work that you've done.
Yes and no. I mean, we started right before the beginning of a bear market, so we didn't think it was going to go, for the market that is to go that south that fast. So we launched in August-ish, 2018, and then November, Bitcoin had a very historic drop off. And a lot of people are like, why would you open a business in the middle of a bear market? We're like,
Sure.
you don't know it's the middle of a bear market, do you? But in that kind of time, there were people that were raising ridiculous amounts of money with no idea and just a PDF, and a lot of those were either bad businesses or just flat out scams. And we didn't want to go down that route to try and make our business what it is. We wanted to do it with real clients, real revenue, real profits, and do it in a traditional financial services or small business way.
Yeah.
So kind of we took the harder, almost said the harder route. We took the route that we chose. And stick by that. We made the best decision possible, because we wouldn't be where we are now without our clients, without the recognition we have from our community, and without what we kind of give back to them as well. So we are definitely in it for kind of the longer run. We're not doing, we don't have our own token. We don't have any need for it at the moment. So there's no kind of pump and dump there.
Yeah.
And I suppose what our aspiration is to do, as I mentioned earlier with the vision bit, is to try and bring crypto and banking closer together. And we want to do that through our platforms and applications, and working with our regulatory parties and stuff like that as well.
Excellent.
So does that take another 2 years? Does it take another 5 years? Yeah, I suppose we'll have to wait and see. But
The journey is really only just beginning.
while the journey's still going, I've no interest in getting off the train just yet.
No, that's a good answer there. For you, as sort of a person yourself, How have you seen in terms of coinpass? Obviously the world has kind of gone to pop in 2020. It's basically having it as a gap year, I think, is the best way to say this year. But last couple of months, people naturally are probably looking at things differently. They're looking at their lives differently. They're looking at how they spend their money, where they're keeping their money. Have you seen that reflection in coinpass in the growth of it?
Actually, quite the opposite. This is where we're being busier than ever at the moment. Obviously, we're releasing a set of products really soon, so
Mhm.
that's our product roadmap ramping up. I think the interest in the platform being UK, being very very open and very
Yeah.
communicative with our team. Sorry, with our communities, answering every support ticket, answering the phone, having a phone number on our website. Not only is just
Who has
one
a
of the things
phone
you want
number
to do.
nowadays?
Yeah, I know, right? And having that kind of layer of support, people are finding more important, whether they've tried
Yeah.
us first and gone somewhere else and come back, or they've gone for something cheaper or something more flashy, or whatever their buying decision is. They're finding an injustice in the product they're investing in because of not knowing the fee structure, in not being able to see a price until you have money loaded onto the platform,
Mhm.
not having any support, having to rely on Telegram or Facebook information and stuff like that, and not having either a trust partner or an education leader or someone they can kind of rely on just to ask a really simple question. Because some people don't want to broadcast their message to 4,000 people in a Facebook group.
Sure.
They want to kind of go one on one to get their answer.
It comes
And
back to the trust aspect you spoke
comes
about
back to
earlier.
the trust aspect, and some of our clients that have called up with a very simple question have become some of our best clients. Some of the ones that came in for a personal account have come back for a business account, and then also educated themselves a lot more and brought more people with
Yeah.
them. And that's something you can't really put a price on.
Why do you think so many people get that wrong, that trust aspect, that time to actually speak to their customer?
I, th- I,
Because it's
th-
such an easy thing to do, surely.
I think it's down to scale and how you
Mhm.
choose to scale. If you want to try and get millions of users per month, then you simply can't do it. There's not enough time, and a lot of platforms will actually they'll put a barrier kind of up there that you can only go through an email traffic, or you can only
Yeah.
go through a Telegram group, and you've almost got to make the most noise to try and get attention. So
Mhm.
out of all of the 5-star ratings, you probably have just as many equal 1-star ratings, and I hate 1-star ratings.
No one wants one-star ratings, man.
No,
No one.
exactly. So yeah, I think it's definitely trying to cater to our group as best as
Yeah.
possible to kind of suit their needs, not what suits our agenda.
It sounds like you have a real personal communication and relationship with your customers, or at least your core customers at the moment. Moving forward, I'm guessing that might change when you get bigger and bigger. But why was that so important to you? You mentioned the trust, but from day one, have you always said, look, we need to know our customers, we need to speak to them, we need to understand them?
Well, I think it ultimately helps your brand and helps your product more than anything else.
Yeah.
You have a really intimate relationship with them, even if it's via, a podcast, something like this, every other week, or doing content on YouTube, or article posts, etc., or just having, a bit of presence in a Facebook community, etc. Listening to what your clients want, they get to feel a part of the journey instead of just using you as a service provider.
Mhm.
And I think that kind of key difference is what a lot of people can take away from it. If you look at some of the really, really big brands out there, like your Nikes, your Virgins, your all those kind of guys out there, they have like an emotional attachment journey for their clients. You could go and buy a £20 pair of shoes and go running in the park, but people will pay £200 for a pair of shoes because they have an emotional attachment to what they get from that.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about crypto and banking, some other lighter stuff now, you could probably have that same conversation with someone compared to their high street bank to their neobank,
Mm.
because they get a better emotional experience from doing that thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
And crypto and digital assets are no different. I get the support that I need, the education I need, I get a good fair price, and you know what, I really like their message and what they're doing. It could just be a cool factor. It could be anything for everyone. Everybody's different. But what I want to get to is following that client journey of understanding their emotional attachment and journey of what they want to achieve and what they want to do. Not only to build a better product, but obviously to keep growing our community in the same
Mhm.
way.
It
Yeah.
also it's a huge reflection of your company values. It's a
Yeah,
huge reflection of how you want to be representing the company and how you want your customers to see it.
for sure.
You see people queuing up outside NatWest on the high street at the moment, and I'm just thinking, why are they doing that? Like, why is that still a thing that people are doing?
Well, I think there's
So,
a really good point. It comes back to some of the education, right? There's this
yeah,
industrial era kind of thing. Like you have to go to school, you have to pay your taxes, you have to do this, and some people still have this indoctrined bit. You have to
for
physically go
sure.
down to the bank because you can't do anything with a check online. You can't do anything with some of the card services. You have to go to a branch,
Yeah,
and if you think about it, it's actually the most anti thing you possibly do. So you work 9 till 6. Guess when the bank is open? When are you going to go? You
yeah,
might be able to go on some of the weekends, but it's almost this anti thing. Everyone needs that, not instant response and instant gratification, but you need to be able to do business on your own terms in your own time.
yeah.
And I think
I
that's where
think
people aren't catching up to that. They're going to fall behind.
oh, for sure. Consumers more and more are wanting, that you mentioned, that instant gratification, that quick turnaround. Starling Bank, you mentioned checks. They now do the whole, you can take a photo of your check and
Can
upload. Yeah,
That's awesome. I don't know.
yeah. You just take a photo of your check, you say how much the amount is, and literally within 24 hours it appears pending, and then 2 days later it's in your account.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, Starling, for me, are one of those consumer banks that are really trying to disrupt the market a little bit.
Mm,
They've had a little bit of stick with the bounce back loans and all that kind of stuff, but they're also a small bank that have been thrown in the limelight,
mm.
and their growth has been huge, similar to Monzo, I guess you could say. For you, your merging, your communication with banks is what I'm finding really interesting. How receptive are they at the moment to going, look, I'm more than happy to work with coinpass, and do you think that over time the newer banks like Monzo, like Starling, are the ones that are going to just basically annihilate those older banks like NatWest?
So from a communications point, zero. We tried to onboard with a few of them. We got, pretty early on. I mean, instead of wasting any time, so do you deal
Sure.
with digital asset firms? No, they all just have a firm no.
Wow.
So we deal with specific EMI banks in the UK that are underneath
Mhm.
Clearbank. So Clearbank is the newest clearing bank in the UK, very friendly with fintechs and blockchain, etc. Obviously comes with a cost, and obviously heavy compliance and everything else. So you have
Yeah.
to know what you're doing in order to approach them. So I think once our regulation piece is done, I think we could go back and try again because now we'll be an FCA registered firm.
Yeah.
And that would be, we've actually been talking with a few of the innovation teams because they pick up that we're a UK brand, we're in tech, we're in crypto, and some of them just want to have a chat. Tell us more about the problems you face. Tell us more about where you think the place is going.
Mm.
And these innovation teams they're looking into it. They're taking these kind of ideas
Conversations are
seriously on.
starting.
Yeah, because I think they want some thought leaders and they want some, outside help that are not on the payroll.
Yeah.
Guys that I'd love to go down to the bank and just talk crypto with them or talk possibilities with them, or
Yeah.
I'm not that interested in doing all the really really heavy paperwork stuff. But
No, of
in terms
course.
of all the ideas and everything that can go back and forth and possibilities wise,
Yeah.
a lot of them are really really open to it. In terms of the innovation guys, because they're tech guys just like us, and I think it will take time.
Hmm.
I definitely think the neobanks have an edge, but at the end of the day, some of the neobanks are still backed on by high street banks. They're kind of
Yeah.
doing the heavier lifting and the volume. So it's definitely going to have to be the high street guys that have to accept it and want to move forward and innovate before it will kind of trickle down, kind of like
Mm.
your spaceship or Formula One tech getting down to your Ford Fiesta. It takes about 10 years.
Yeah.
It will come. It's just going to be a debate on how long it's going to take.
For sure. And it's good to hear that you're in it. You're in it for the long haul. You're not looking for like a quick flip with the business, which is super refreshing as well. Because there's so many founders out there that basically from day one they're like, "Oh, I'm going to be out in 2 years." So it's nice to see that you're so passionate about crypto, blockchain, that side of things, which is bringing the business further, which is exactly how it should be. So
Hmm.
hats off to you there.
Thank you very much.
One of my final questions for you is, if what advice would you be giving to someone if they just want to start working within that crypto space? what are some of the easiest routes to get into it? I'm guessing via coinpass. And what are some of the things that they should just like stay away from? Just keep it super simple.
So people that want to work in the industry,
Yeah.
I definitely think it's based on, there's a lot of value in connections right now. I mean, it's still a relatively small community, whether in the UK or globally. We're talking still less than 0.5%, maybe slightly more than 0.5% global population involved in crypto. Market cap's under 300 billion. You know, there's still companies starting every other day, some companies closing every other day. I definitely think anyone that's in, marketing, content, tech, development, any of the normal skill sets, it doesn't have to be crypto inclusive. There are, businesses still need, bums on seats and real talent to take on an idea and drive it. So I think definitely if you've got, an engaging story, if you target the people that you want to work for, so, just like learning about crypto and learning about blockchain is doing your research, pitching your idea on how you can be different, pitching your idea on how that company's product can be different, definitely stands out to my eyes. If we get a resume saying, oh, I'm want to do X, Y, and Z with your business, if we're not hiring for that particular position, then it kind of just goes in the pile. They come up with a really great idea. I used your app and I looked at your two competitors and you could be doing this. That's really interesting to me, because they want an admin role. That's nothing to do with that, but make it interesting. And I think that's the best way to stand out, because this industry is not just about developers anymore, and not just about creating a brand new token. There's a lot more to it, and there will be a lot more to it. What was either a quote or a meme? The other, I don't know. They're kind of the same thing these days, right?
It's all
Was
merged.
all the guys? It used to be if you couldn't make it. If you couldn't make it in Wall Street, you ended up in crypto, and now it's going the other way around. If you can't make it in crypto, you end up on Wall Street. So there's going to be this eventual kind of shift, this shift and move around onto the digital asset space as it becomes, fund managers get more involved because they have a really good custodian and a regulated execution provider. As more of the masses kind of come in that have a really easy to use, really simple, high engagement support brand like ourselves, to buy their first £100 with, to be able to share it with their friends, to be able to have that really good emotional attachment to what they're buying and what they're holding, and then all the way up to your big banks and big governments, using the technology for greater use, better expandability on their existing systems, more transparency, and just faster communications. It's kind of where that kind of natural progression needs to go. And I think with more of these kind of conversations happening all the time, with some of the the bigger debates that are happening with really big companies out there, it's just a natural evolution. It's just being at the very beginning of it. It seems like looking at the top of Everest, from the bottom. But we could be at base camp in the next 1 to 2 years before we know it.
Yeah, it must be such an interesting space for you to be sitting in right now. It's interesting space for me to be sitting in, look at from an outsider looking in. So the stuff you're seeing must just be like mind blowing sometimes. It's incredible.
No, it is. It's every day is a different day.
Yeah, which is great. So my final question for you is: if people want to find out more about coinpass, find out more about what you do, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, come to our website, www.coinpass.com. You can join us on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. Obviously, we're building those communities out right now. We've also got a lot of information on our blog, new articles every week. We're starting an academy series on kind of like the 101 of each particular chain that we support. And yeah, some of the products we've got coming out soon, including our mobile app, our trading platform, and some of the interest rate bearing stuff is kind of what we're looking forward to releasing towards the end of the year.
Love it. I wish you all the best with releasing that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys get up to in the next couple of years.
Cool. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.